Awesome. I think we're ready. We are recording. Woohoo!
Ooh, exciting. All
Episode
right. We're
1.
here to talk about periods, shedding the shame. Welcome to Shed the Shame podcast. I am your co-host, Aldwin Sperber. I am the CEO and founder of Ladybox, an organic period subscription box. And how about you, Alex?
I'm Alex Coble-Frakes. I am the CEO and founder of The Agenda Period, which is a planner and app that help folks use the 4 phases of their menstrual cycle to align their business and work tasks to increase their productivity and feel in flow. So we are super duper excited to be sharing space with you all. We are going to go on an adventure over the next days and weeks and months to come. It is going to be real and messy, just like your period. Yeah, hashtag the tagline.
That was so good.
So on this first episode, we wanted to let you all get to know us a little bit, let you know about Shed the Shame. So Adeline, let's actually start there. Why don't you let everyone listening know how you came up with this campaign and how it's kind of expanding into this podcast.
All right, I'll try to do the TLDR version. Back in 2015, I used to work at a marketing agency that did work with WaterAid, a nonprofit that helps bring sanitation and hygiene and clean water to impoverished and marginalized communities in over 30 countries. And there was a time when I think it was 2015 or 2013 was like the first menstrual hygiene campaign ever that kicked off, and they were being a part of it. And just hearing the stories about menstruators having to go into huts, dying in the huts, hearing about how they have to reuse their pads, put them on the rooftop, let the rain come down and wash the pads, but then they also drink that water. It just was like really heartbreaking to hear the stories about how like undignified of a lifestyle these menstruators had to live just because they didn't have like the basic things such as clean water or the basic essentials they needed. And even today in 2021, people still feel like they have to like whisper when they talk about their period, which is such BS. And so with Ladybox, I've always wanted to have people, menstruators, feel like their best and brightest selves. And I wanted to be able to do some kind of give back for a nonprofit, especially WaterAid, because they were part of the inspiration for me starting Ladybox. And I was like, well, what's a fun, name for a campaign to like do fundraising? And I was like, well, why don't we shed the shame? And I reached out to different brands and colleagues, and Alex, you happen to be one of the magical humans I reached out to, and you were like, hey, let's start a podcast and call it Shed the Shame period podcast. And I was like, I love that idea. And so here we are today. So yeah, from Menstrual Hygiene Day, which was May 28th, all the way through World Toilet Day, which is November 19th, also Alex's twins' birthdays. I am doing a fundraiser, Shed the Shame, where purchases from, on the website will go towards donating to WaterAid. So we will be donating only to WaterAid from May 28th through November 19th.
That's so fabulous. And she also has these really adorable water bottles that say Shed the Shame on them. I can't wait for my water bottle to arrive. I ordered one last week. And I think this is such an important topic because we coming into an interesting intersection in the menstrual health movement, and we're really talking about greenifying periods, right? Like there's even like a campaign called like Red the Green the Red or something like that.
Yeah,
which is awesome. I'm myself a happy cup user, but you point out something like reusable options aren't even always really that accessible to people. For one, the initial cost can be really, really expensive. To look $20 to $50 on one of these products can be out of reach for many folks. And then if they don't have a place to dump or clean or even dry, their solution, then it's still inaccessible. And so I hear some people talking about it almost in like a more shaming way of like, oh, how could you use disposable products now that all these options are out there? And so I think that's something that we really want to bring to this conversation, is the intersectionalities that exist within menstruation, the way that our own identities and life circumstances can really complicate and continue to compound the issue of menstruating with dignity. And so we are all about everyone finding the solution that works for them in the way that works for them. There's no shame. We have enough shame in this space. And so that's something I think really important to kind of hold space for right off the top. So yeah, I'm freaking thrilled. As soon as you sent out that packet, she like made this gorgeous packet too of like what the campaign was about. I was like, first of all, I love nonprofit work. I love this organization. This is amazing. Second of all, the name gave me goosebumps because there is so much shame around shedding of the endometrium, which is a perfectly normal process. I cannot think of another bodily function that we put so much stress and angst around, and we couldn't make more humans without it. So we are here to love periods.
Well, the fact that like there's 800 million menstruators menstruating a day is like, that's how normal this biological function is. So like, no more shame around that.
No more shame. Yeah. And maybe we both can just like talk about our backgrounds briefly, but like high level for me, when I look at the amount of pain, discomfort, disorders, there's a lot of the mind-body connection. I'm a health coach. So there's a lot when we have so much mental anxiety and angst around something, it can compound and have people no fault of their own, but leading to making this even worse than it should be, or all these things around like pain being normal. That's not normal. No one should live in pain a week out of every month. And we're also here to shed all that bullshit as well. Like we deserve better than this in the environment that exists right now.
It should be okay to be comfortable during your period, and we shouldn't be told to just like, oh, it's just period cramps.
Look it up.
You're fine. Yeah. Well, I've had like really weird periods ever since I gave birth to my son 12 years ago. Well, 11 years ago is when I got my period again after having him. But like before that, like I was an athlete. So I had, a little bit odd cycles too, because I was exercising all the time. So it was irregular, but whenever I got them, they were barely there. And then after birthing my son a year later, I got my period, and it's just been a wild ride ever since then, until I, went on birth control, which, isn't really managing your cycle, but it has been nice to not have painful cycles anymore. I've had painful, heavy, irregular, like I bled onto an office chair, and it was so embarrassing, but thankful my boss was so understanding. But it's just, people shouldn't have to be afraid that, if they bleed and it goes through their clothes, that they shouldn't have to feel shame around that at all.
Yeah, they really shouldn't. So that's what this podcast is for, is bringing all of these topics to light. If this is something that's interesting to you and you want to be a part of it, we'll have links in the show notes, or you can reach out to either of us personally, but we want to highlight and make space for all of the stories. First period postpartum, period sex, weird periods, irregular periods, or as my friend Kate says, free range periods. I love that. I think that's so cute. So any of it, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to just be here for bringing awareness and making it so normal. And I found, like, I don't know how you felt when you started your company, but at first when people would ask me what I did, I'd be like, I talk about periods. And my weirdness made them like equally feel weird about it. But the more I'm like, this is what I do. I talk about periods and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, okay. It kind of helps them shed the shame as well. So the more we can step into this space, I just think the better it's going to go for everybody on the planet.
I think I got a little lucky because the minute I started talking about it, people were like, that's cool. Even when I brought up men who menstruate, when I learned about men who menstruate, I even got asked to talk about that in front of like all these business people who like run banks, insurance companies, but it was because they're like, here, listen to this entrepreneur starting something in our county. And, you know, like saying like men who menstruate in front of like all these older white men was kind of an interesting reaction. I got like a lot of cricket. It felt like there was like cricket noises, but then also like head tilts too. Like, what? Men who menstruate? But I loved that, you know, this other white man asked me to come on stage and talk about periods and like starting a company surrounding periods in our county. So I feel like I got lucky in that respect. But, you know, some people are like, oh, what do you like? So is your business like an MLM thing? Like, do you like have moms that work? Like, what do you do with that? I'm like, no, that's more of like the thing that I've gotten with my business.
That's so interesting. Yeah, when I first started, and maybe we'll just like each share a little bit of our backgrounds. But I have a business degree, real focus on social entrepreneurship, a lot of education, and then I finally started a health coaching company because I hated working for other people, and that's what eventually led me to the Agenda Period, because I found that I had higher sales when I was ovulating, which was super awesome. But when I'm from Iowa, so maybe that has something to do, like regionality potentially can have something to do with it, because I like started to call around to get quotes for the printed product, and people are like, oh, like that's like really a niche market. And to your point,
just gotta print it.
800 million people a day have their period. And it's like, and that doesn't even include all the people in a year who have their period. I'm like, but it's really not. They're actually like a lot of people with periods. I actually got beaten out of a business pitch competition for like some funding because they said my product was too niche. And a guy that got into the next round over me made a stand-up kayak. So apparently there are more people who want stand-up kayaks than have periods.
Oh my gosh. Wait, did anybody ask you, well, how are you going to make this relatable to men? I got asked that question.
I got asked, what are you going to create for men? And I said, excuse me, I think my hands and plate are a little full already, sir. If you would like to make a hormonal tracker for men, you can go right ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
I got asked that multiple times. Like, but what about men though? Like who don't have periods? Like, what are you going to make for us?
No, you can buy, like, well, at least for Ladybox, I was like, you have at least one menstruator in your life that you could buy this for, and they would love you for that. At least one. So like, and then you think about all like the females or non-binary folks, or even if you have trans men in your life, they would probably find a, you know, period subscription box pretty handy and helpful during their period. So I'm sure you could find a use case for this.
I said, you know, you could learn more about it and you could become an ally. That's what you could do first, because I don't actually have time to stop this company to make a company for you.
Oh my God. I love that answer. That's all I got. Snap, snap.
Yeah, so today we wanted to do a little bit of a cycle check-in and kind of go through the 4 phases of this cycle. Cycle check-ins, I started this in one of my Facebook groups because it's just a way to normalize and love each of the 4 phases of the cycle, because when a lot of people come to this information, they don't even know what phase they're in at all, or that there are 4 phases of the cycle, because we're like, I have my period and then I like stop thinking about it until the next period. So do you want to kick it off and say kind of what's your use case with cycles and what phase you think you may be in? I'd love to hear.
Sure. Yeah. So I learned about the different seasons of the cycles and like the phases of the cycles through Maisie Hill, through her book, Period Power. And that was just like a mind-blowing, mind-opening experience. And so I'm currently in my luteal phase. I am I'm in my fall season, but I'm probably about to enter my winter, because I am tired and I do not want to be around people, which tends to happen when I get into my luteal fall phase, because I'm an ambivert. And if we're doing like Myers-Briggs conversations or whatever, I am an ENFP, but really EINFP. But yeah, yesterday I went on a sailing celebration for my birthday, my friend's birthday, and I did not want to be around people. And today I'm glad that I really don't have to be around too many people except for my son and my partner. So that's the phase I'm in my cycle.
Yeah, I'm also in the luteal phase, but I'm in the first week. The luteal phase is the longest phase, and I think this phase can get a lot of bad rap because, you know, you may have heard the tropes like, oh, you're so bitchy, you're PMSing. Like, are you on your period? Even before you're on your period, because having, you know, being feminine presenting and having righteous indignation about anything automatically means you're probably just overreacting and on your period, which is like a whole other an episode, like a topic for a whole other podcast episode.
You got some fire in you today. I don't know. Maybe you should go into
it. But yeah, so I'm definitely, I think, in like the fiery, like still pretty high energy part of the autumn phase. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I call it my CEO energy. Like if heads need to roll, heads gonna roll this week. Like I have no time for bullshit from anyone, and I just will be very direct. So the more that I learn about the 4 phases, the more I get to set boundaries, and the more I get to work with that energy and have space for all of it. So maybe we'll just do high level. What are the 4 phases? And I love that you match them with seasons. I think that's a really good way for people to come into this energy. And then maybe from like a product standpoint, you can say, what are some things that could support, maybe what you've even seen through Ladybox, and just like talk about how we can support each other during the 4 phases. So phase 1 is the menstrual phase. I also used to think that was the last phase, but it's really like a new cycle is starting, day 1. Yep. So inner winter. You have a lot of knowledge about what can support people during particularly this phase. I'd love to hear about that from your perspective.
Yeah, well, definitely stock up on your favorite snack, but you know, your superpower this phase is, you know, you can do some relaxed planning, and so having a journal by your side is going to be great. And then also just something that's going to be relaxing. So we try to touch on the 5 senses of the body. So having like lotion or body oil to soothe yourself while you're, you know, going through your period. And then even if it's like lightly scented, that's probably really helpful. I tend to only include like light citrusy smells for the Ladybox because everybody has like sensitivity. And then, you know, like sound, which tends to be with like the snacks, and then, you know, you got your tastes in there. And we try to like make sure that it's, you know, gonna be okay for that phase of your body. So no high sugars or anything, or no high salts, all organic. And then I love having like a good playlist by my side. So Spotify is something great to have. And then eye covers or even like blue light blockers have been like a saving grace during my fall and winter phases, especially. So those, and then having again like an eye mask to help, you know, you relax if you need like a moment during the day. And then there's even ones where you can like have heat or ice. And then, but really like this phase, just have something near you where you can touch yourself so that you can soothe yourself as you're, you know, menstruating. That's the biggest one, I would say.
I love that. And I also love that you brought up the planning, because that's how we teach, like that's the agenda period framework, is doing the planning during your menstrual phase, because I used to do all of my planning in the follicular phase and I didn't realize it because I'd be like, oh, let's go. And then like 3 weeks later, I would hate myself because I'd be back in the luteal phase and be like, who the hell scheduled me for all this shit that I don't want to do now? And I'd be so pissed, like month after month, but I didn't realize it was just, it was in the wrong phase. And because we're not taught to think about ourselves cyclically, we're really taught to cram ourselves into this 24-hour pattern that's much more similar to males' hormonal patterns. And we just don't know. And so, I just kept falling into that trap over and over again. So planning when I'm a little bit more level-headed or even inward really has balanced out my life. Like that one change has made so much of an impact.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. During your like folliculars, like you get it done.
Done. Yeah. So that is the next phase, the follicular phase. That's our inner springtime energy. I felt like definitely comes back up. What have you found has been like really supportive during the follicular phase?
Well, we haven't had anything in Ladybox for this phase, but it's really just like whatever is gonna get you moving, even if it's just like stretching, or if you're, you know, Hawaiian or you love Hawaiian culture, maybe some like hula moves.
Ooh.
So just like getting your body moving and waking it back up after, you know, like having a still moment during your menstrual cycle or your menstrual phase.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
And I would say, like, for me, going easy on the caffeine, because I can like sometimes jump so hard because I'm an extreme extrovert. And so like I
Mhm.
get like I feel sometimes almost like high on estrogen. I'm like, oh my God, let's do it. And then like I can like go like I'll like work 10 to 15 hours for like 3 days in a row and then like crash on my couch. So having
Oh
a little
yeah.
bit more ease into it, I think is also important because like it can, I mean, I'm an intense personality, like type A, ENFJ. So I got the judging in there. I'm a Leo. So like when that comes back, when that swings back up, it can just like really go back up. So
Yeah.
watching caffeine intake, watching alcohol intake. For me also, I don't drink during my period. I don't know about you, but I found, just like you say, no sweet, like ton of sugar or salt. That can
Yeah.
also make it really hard for my body to just shed and release everything. So
Yeah.
those are
Yes.
some of the things I think about during my period. And then also, how do I just like be gentle so I don't hit the gas too hard during
Yes. Ease into it. That's what spring does. It eases you back in.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, then ovulation phase.
Mm-hmm.
This can be really potent. It's the shortest phase of the cycle for people. And well, depending, maybe your period, if you have a really, really short period, but typically
Yeah.
ovulation is the shortest phase. High energy, think of kind of summertime energy. Anything
Yeah.
that you recommend or think about during ovulation?
And if you are sexually active, have those fun things, like those fun toys, maybe a towel by your side too. And then just like making sure that you're eating the foods that give you energy. I found that like citrus, at least for me, helps me like stay motivated during this phase. And then this is where you can go pretty hard and getting the stuff done and going on like those like big hikes if you want to, or like a fun kayaking adventure. So
Networking, like meeting all the
networking.
people, ask for a
Yes.
raise during this time.
Oh yeah.
If you work for someone else, sales calls if you work for yourself. I find all of those things to be really potent. And some permission I always love to give in the ovulation phase is when we kind of think about the trope of women in media or the feminine in media, we really think about like an ovulating woman, like a woman who's smiling, whose skin looks clear, whose hair looks shiny. And so this, like, you don't have to push yourself too hard. If you want, I've had clients say, I can't rest during ovulation because I should be on right now. Like, your body's the ultimate authority. Always listen to your body, no matter what phase you're in. Take these as kind of guideposts, but your body's also like always the authority. And let's like burn down the patriarchy. So you don't have to do anything if you don't want to do anything. You can use the ovulation time for yourself. It doesn't have to be used for anyone else. It can be your creative potent time. It does not have to be for making more humans. If you don't ever want to make another human, this can still be a really powerful time for you. So again, even shedding the shame around what I should be doing during each of those phases.
No should.
No shitting on yourself here. None of
No,
that.
no shitting. No. Yeah.
And then the last phase, which we're both in today, the Ludio Phase, the inner autumn time. And then again, what I've seen is it kind of breaks down into those almost 2 weeks. This is the longest phase. So like the first week can still be pretty high energy, but maybe a little intensity to it. And then the second week kind of coming back down and maybe feeling a little bit more sensitive.
That was me last week for sure. That like high intensity, everything must be done the way I want it to be done. And then starting yesterday, I was like, people.
I've noticed, so I have some like, this is super weird, but I have noticed I have some like eczema that pops up on my hands. And I think it's menstrual cycle related because I've been in the luteal phase for like 2 or 3 days and it just popped back up on my skin.
It might
be. I use like the same lotions and creams. And so this is just like, these are all these kind of things we're going to get to explore. Hormones are awesome and mystical and magical. But they feel really hard when we don't know about them and we don't have a place to talk about them. So
yeah, and that's why like we started this too, to make space to talk about it, and then even to be okay with not knowing all the things about it too. Like there's always going to be somebody else that knows something that you don't, and it's, you know, why don't we lean into that more often? So
yeah, so I think let's wrap up our very first episode with what's one tip that you would recommend that someone could start on today if they find this interesting to them. What would be your number one hack, Ladybox hack, for someone who's tuning into the pod?
Other than really, really, really listening to your body, like seriously, can't emphasize that enough, is hold the space that you need. So if you're feeling energetic enough to go out and talk to people and you're being COVID safe about it, then please go talk, mingle, network. If you really need to like hold back and stay home, stay home. And, you know, if you're in your luteal phase, write in your journal, do some planning. Or if you're out in like your follicular, that is such a fun word to say. Yeah, like go on that like run, go talk to people, do what's going to make you feel right inside.
I love that. Yeah. Red School from the UK, they call it the big red rule. It's like your body's the authority. So like really listening to whatever your body says or is instructing you to do. And I think we've been disconnected. We've been deeply disembodied for a long time.
Yes.
You know, that's part of the trap of the patriarchy, of white supremacy, of all these things that really cut us off from our full truth, is like keeping us outside of our power, outside of our bodies. And so I love that invitation to tap back in. So my tip is really similar. It's just like tap back in and then take notes, because so much goes on in any day, week, or month that it's hard to see the patterns if we don't have some kind of way to collect the pieces. So writing it down, even just saying like, I found out for me that day 24, I hate everyone. Like I literally stopped planning meetings. Like this was before I had babies. I was just like, I literally hate everyone. So I just like would cross it out and like no meetings. I would block it on my calendar, but I only found that pattern from watching over several cycles. So so that's the invitation, is to tap back into yourself. We're so excited to be starting this podcast with you all. Get involved, help us shed the shame, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks everybody.